Welcome to another episode of Golden Nuggets, Tips and Tales powered by Property Finder, bringing you real tools, real tactics, and real talk from the region's top real estate professionals. Stay tuned for practical, no fluff advice, because behind every great listing is an agent armed with top tips and powerful takeaways you won't want to miss. Welcome to the season finale of Golden Nuggets, Tips and Tales. And of course, joining me, we're going to have to close with Vladimir Malugin, who's the Vice President of Property Finder UAE. Now, the advice we're going to get today is on how to build longevity, how to future-proof your business as an agent and your business as an agency owner. So for all the leaders out there, for all the agents out there, make sure you've got your notepad ready, because we're going to get some top advice from Vladimir, who you know what people are browsing, you know how they're clicking, you know you've got the scoop on what's about to pop and what we can expect. And you also have like major intel on the key performance indicators that measure agent and agency success. So you're definitely going to have a few tips and observations that will help us wrap up this season of Tips and Tales. So tell us, what is the key thing to make sure you're not one of those agencies, the 50% that are going to close down, or one of the 86% of agents that fell within their first year?
Staying highly competitive, being resilient, and specializing. Niche down. Yeah. Let me unpack these things in turn. The strategies that have worked in 2024 are no longer going to work this year. And the reason for that is the market has become a lot more competitive. We touched upon that a couple of episodes back, and today I'm going to repeat that data. The Dubai Land Department at the beginning of 2024 had 4,200 agencies registered with them. At the beginning of this year, it was 7,500, and end of April, it was 7,800. So that's a growth of 78% year on year in terms of the agents that are coming to Dubai or maybe setting up their own shop. And there is an influx of people coming from abroad, getting off the plane and basically thinking, great, Dubai is full of unicorns and rainbows. I'm going to get my $1 million dirham check, line up a whole bunch of Lamborghinis outside my door, and everything is going to be hunky-dory. Well, guess what? It is very competitive, and it is getting more and more competitive. Yeah. And today, if you think about it, there's good and bad news. What's the good news? 50% of the agencies will survive the first year. What's the bad news? 50% of the agencies will not survive and will shut down at the beginning of that first year.
So there's 78% more brokers. And what percent more volume business do you think?
78% more brokerages, right?
Okay.
If we look at the data in terms of the value growth, last year was 27% in terms of the value growth and 36% in terms of the volume, okay? So effectively, for every additional deal, you've got now 2 brokerages, 2 firms that are competing for that deal. And that doesn't even include the number of brokers, which today is in the tens of thousands.
So the market is growing, but competition is exploding. So who is going to survive?
Those who are specialized, those who are resilient, and those who don't change course every 3-6 months.
Are you seeing that happen?
I'm seeing that happen quite a bit.
What, like from off-plan to secondary, or secondary to off-plan? Or?
Well, there has been a few pivots last year where people have basically gone from off-plan to secondary, saying off-plan is cooling down. And for that trend only to be reversed. I think if you look at the April data, secondary was growing at 68%, and nobody should complain about that. But primary grew at a whopping 128%. This is absolutely spectacular. So some people have said, listen, secondary is tough. Secondary supply is difficult to come by. You need to know the landlords. You need to know the sellers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot to primary. Commissions are higher. Stock is a little bit easier to come by, and I've seen a number of those changes. Pivoting, especially if you've just opened a business, 3 to 6 months down the road, is not necessarily something that allows you to build a resilient business. Some of the most resilient businesses today in Dubai that have been around for, you can say 10, 20 years are those that operate in rent, secondary, and primary. So they have a very good mix of the three types of categories of transactions. Some of the most successful recent entrants to the Dubai market have been agencies that have said, I'm going to make a specialization and I'm going to double down on a particular community. And I'm going to make it my business to know everything there is to know about every tower, about every sub-community. And I'm going to be the go-to specialist. I'm going to absolutely own the first 3 pages in those communities. My name is going to be known to both the sellers, which today are close to about 5% of the traffic that we get on the portal, and the buyers. And the other way to think about it is a really good way of establishing yourself in any community is you start with rent. Because rent is what pays the bills day in and day out.
And it's forgotten right now because so much money is being made on off-plan, secondary, that a lot of good agents have just, commissions are small.
100%.
It's a lot of paperwork.
100%. It's a lot of paperwork. It's very competitive. You have to do split deals. But rent is a great place for new agents to get their training in Dubai, to learn the communities, to learn to qualify the leads, to understand how people transact and interact in Dubai, which is, a very special and different market, especially if you're coming from the UK or if you're coming from somewhere in Europe. It's a good training school for the agents to understand the business, and obviously for the sales managers to bring them into that business without necessarily risking hundreds of thousands of commission that you can potentially lose if you're, talking about a large secondary or primary sale deal.
Yeah, and we've said this before. It's if you're serious about this industry, if you see yourself in real estate for a long time, by starting off in leasing, your tenants of today will be your buyers of tomorrow and will be your sellers of the day after tomorrow. So, as you said, building those connections, building those networks, owning those communities. And let's just recap the other golden nuggets from the rest of the season. Being a super agent, getting that visibility, being responsive, making sure you don't miss a lead, qualifying, spending good time qualifying leads, at least 6 minutes on the phone, speaking to them and building relationships. And that's some recipe for success.
You were a very good agent in the past. I can see that.
I was, yeah.
Just picking on the point that you made a little bit earlier about rental behavior and buying behavior. If we look at what's happened at the beginning of last year, when RERA effectively unleashed the rental calculator, and there was a significant increase in the price of the rental properties, what we saw happening in the market is people pivoted to buy. And there was a 15 to 20% drop in terms of the interest on rent. And that was exactly the equivalent interest increase in people looking to buy properties.
Right.
As you remember, there was a spike in the 1 to 3 million dirham category, where people basically were no longer happy to pay the increased rents. And they were like, I'm actually going to go buy a property and I'm going to live in that property. And we also spoke about Dubai becoming less and less transient. So every time, and I can speak with the authority of the data that we see on Property Finder today, that we see a decrease in rental interest, there is a spike in secondary searches, because effectively, or if we're talking about primary, this is something that is going to be ready within the next 3 to 6 months, because people that are here in Dubai, residents, are largely looking to buy a place to live in and to have effectively, a roof over their head.
And so whilst off-plan is booming right now, at some point, those off-plan units are going to be ready units. So you as an agent need to familiarize yourself with the secondary process.
One man's or woman's off-plan is another man or woman's secondary. And what we all know is effectively, even before completion, that property can be resold 2 or 3 times. And effectively, once the property has been sold once, you're going to need the Form A, and that is considered secondary. So today, these properties will transact quite a few times.
Any other tips for future-proofing your business?
So that's a very good question. How do you future-proof your business? If we look at what makes people win in real estate, it's really around getting the listings, having the agents and retaining the agents, and making sure that you can get the buyers. It's about the speed of transaction. It's about the velocity of the transactions. And as we said a couple of times, standards will transact in about 50 days when premiums will transact 5 times faster. So it's making sure that you get the listings, have the agent, have the buyer, and you're basically able to do rinse and repeat as many times in as short of a period as possible, because this is effectively what maximizes the commission and earnings of an agency. It is important to understand how Property Finder algorithm works, and is around the quality score, it's around the verification, and is around the super agent status. So a listing that's got a higher quality score, that is verified and listed by a reputable super agent, is going to be visible higher up on the page and is going to transact faster. And it is about using the exposure or the visibility products that we have. We've spoken about Community Top Spot, Spotlight, Premium, Featured, and then Standard. But you also want to make sure that you're not forgetting the essentials of real estate. You want to make sure that you're present in rent, you're present in primary and secondary, and you have a balanced portfolio in terms of listings and the categories, market categories where you participate.
So tell us a bit more about Market Watch.
Property Finder Market Watch is a quarterly publication where we gather the data and where we talk about the trends of what's happening in the market. We look at DLD data, we look at what's happening on the portal. We have a lot of insights that are community-based and that talk about what's trending. Because today, as effectively the leading portal in the UAE that gets close to 100 million visitors a year, we can see what is being searched for, and we usually share that information with our agents, and we share that through a number of tools, and Market Watch is indeed one of those publications. And those things that are being searched on today are the listings and are the type of properties that will transact 2-3 months down the road. So it's super important to be able to know these trends. What are the tools outside of Market Watch you can have? Property Finder Expert 2.0 is the new CRM platform that we've rolled out, and you've got tools such as the Listings Performance Dashboard that allows you to have access at your fingertips in terms of what's trending and what's hot in any given community. And such tools as Data Finder, Data Guru are also very useful when you want to look at transactions and what is transacting in each particular community.
And there's ways as well that you can use that data to get that price reduction or to get that listing or to have that conversation, third party the information, because it's data, it's not opinions, right?
You know, you need to use the data in order to have meaningful and well-informed conversations with both sellers and buyers. And if you're able to show them what is transacting, what is trending, and at what prices transactions have happened in the past for that particular tower, you sound as somebody who knows what they're talking about, and you're operating with the data. So having these transaction numbers at your fingertips, and again, we have today the mobile version of PF Expert 2.0 that agents use on the go. Being able to share that whilst you're doing a viewing is super important.
So final golden nuggets to wrap up the season, tips and tales. Well, probably don't have time for a tale, but just a final tip.
Use the tools that Property Finder puts at your disposal to turn gut feel into market intelligence.
Oh, I like that one. There you have it. Data is power. The tools are there. Use them. And watch all the other episodes, because we dropped some really good nuggets and tips and tales that you can implement immediately. Just binge the whole season. Hope you enjoyed that. And thank you for joining us for Golden Nuggets, Tips and Tales.